On a July afternoon, the hottest thing in an Appalachian cabin might not have been the sun. It might have been the supper fire. Picture a black cook stove standing in a small room. Iron is hot under the hand. A kettle is simmering. Cornbread needs an oven. Beans need time. Heat rolls off the stove into a house that has no electric fan and no air conditioner waiting to carry it away. The family still has to eat. So how did mountain people keep from roasting inside their own homes? There was no single trick. One household had a deep porch. Another had doors that opened across from one another. A third had a breezeway between rooms. Some moved the cooking into a separate summer kitchen. Some had a spring house down the slope where cold water passed beneath milk and butter. Plenty of families had only a plain cabin and their own good judgment about when to open it, when to shade it, and when to move the work somewhere else. That last part matters. Old houses were not naturally comfortable just because they were old. July humidity still settled in the hollows. Smoke found its way back through a doorway. Mosquitoes and flies came through open windows. Garden work, livestock, laundry, and cooking did not stop because the afternoon turned mean. The old household was not air-conditioned. It was managed. Heat was kept out where it could be kept out. Fire was moved when there was another place for it. Air was invited through when the outside air was worth bringing in. The porch became a working room. The spring became a cooling tool. The clock of the day mattered almost as much as the walls. But there is a line between borrowing an old principle and pretending a dangerous heat wave is harmless. We will keep that line clear. First, let us stand outside the cabin and look at the sun. Before a room can be cooled, heat has to reach it. Summer sun strikes a roof, a wall, or a pane of glass. Those surfaces warm. Some of that heat travels inward. Afternoon sun on a western wall can keep giving back heat after the sun has dropped behind the ridge. A tree, a roof overhang, or a porch roof interrupts that work before it reaches the room. Shade on the outside is more useful than a thin curtain trying to manage the heat after it has crossed the glass. Mountain households did not all choose their sites for summer comfort. A family built where land, water, a road, and a workable piece of ground allowed. Still, the trees, slope, roof, openings, and outbuildings became part of how the place behaved in July. The porch did more than hold a rocking chair. Its roof shaded the wall and the doorway behind it. It gave beans a place to string, clothes a place to mend, children a place to sit, and tired people somewhere to work without staying beside the stove. When rain came through, the household could remain outside the main room and still stay under cover. Openings mattered too. One open window does not guarantee a breeze. Air needs a way in and a way out. Doors or windows on different sides of a room can let moving air cross the people inside instead of circling near one wall. At the Elijah Oliver Place in Cades Cove, the National Park Service preserves a dog trot-style cabin. Two enclosed parts share one roof with an open passage between them. That passage gives the building its name and provides a shaded route for air and people. It is a useful example, but it is one house. Do not turn it into a picture of every mountain home. Appalachia held one-room cabins, double pen houses, frame farmhouses, company houses, and buildings changed a room at a time as families grew or money allowed. The principle is broader than the floor plan. Give the air a route. Shade the places where people gather. Keep the hard afternoon sun from striking the most used rooms when the site and building allow it. Warm air rises. If a house has a lower opening for cooler air and a higher opening where warm air can leave, that rising air can help pull a small current through the space. Modern building guidance calls this the chimney effect. The old household did not need that term to notice that an upstairs window, loft opening, or high doorway changed the room below. Natural ventilation has limits. On a still, humid afternoon, the air may have nowhere useful to go. If the outside air is hotter, throwing every window open can bring more heat in. Smoke can make the choice worse. That is why the house was opened and closed by judgment, not by one permanent rule. Bring in the cooler air when it arrives. Shade the room when the sun is bearing down. Do not expect a breeze that is not there. And if the largest heat source is the stove, deal with the stove. A wood cook stove does two jobs at once. It cooks the food and it warms the room. That second job is welcome in January. In July, it is a burden. Where a household had the means and the right building arrangement, hot work could move into a summer kitchen. This might be a separate little building, a room connected by a porch, or an older outbuilding given a new purpose. The details changed by region and family. The purpose was plain. Keep the cooking fire, smoke, steam, and some of the fire risk away from the rooms where people slept and spent the evening. The Pennsylvania Agricultural History Project documents summer kitchens used for the heavy work of the warm season. The Smithsonian has excavated a separate summer kitchen at Woodlawn in Maryland. National Register records describe summer kitchens that stood near the farmhouse, sometimes joined by a porch. Those examples cover different places and different lives. The particular summer kitchen tradition is strongly tied to some German and Mid-Atlantic farm communities. Detached kitchens elsewhere could also carry the history of enslaved cooks whose labor was deliberately separated from the main house. A neat little building can hide a hard human story if we talk only about architecture. In a mountain household, moving the fire did not make the cooking disappear. Someone still split and carried wood. A person still stood over hot iron, lifted water, watched the pot, and cleaned the tools. The main room became cooler because the heat and labor had been moved, not erased. Even without a dedicated summer kitchen, families could separate hot work when the place allowed it. An outdoor hearth, a covered work area, or a stove in an outbuilding kept some heat beyond the sleeping rooms. A porch table could hold the snapping, peeling, shelling, and sorting, so the kitchen received only the part that truly needed fire. The food itself changed with July. Fresh tomatoes needed no long simmer to taste good. Corn could go from stalk to pot. Cucumbers, onions, berries, and fruit reached the table with little or no oven heat. That did not remove the canning, drying, and preserving work that crowded summer kitchens. It did give a household some meals that asked less of the fire. Modern public health guidance still recommends using the stove and oven less during extreme heat. The reason has not changed. A burner, oven, or wood fire adds heat to the place where people are trying to cool down. The old summer kitchen was not a magic cool room. It was a decision about where the hottest work belonged. Once the fire moved, the household could follow the shade. July work began early because there was plenty to do. not because the morning was picturesque. Great Smoky Mountains records describe enormous amounts of hand labor in warm season gardens. Corn and vegetables had to be hoed. Weeds did not wait. Animals needed water and care. Produce had to be gathered when it was ready. Laundry, food preparation, mending, and cleaning continued around the farm work. When a chore could be shifted, the cooler part of the day gave the body a better chance. Current heat guidance says to schedule strenuous work for cooler hours when possible. Take breaks, use shade, and drink water. History does not tell us that every family followed a perfect summer schedule. A cow that needed milking or a storm-threatening cut hay could set the clock. Poverty also limited choices. Knowing that noon was hot did not guarantee the work could wait. Still, the house and yard offered different places as the sun moved. A shaded porch could hold quieter work. A tree might. Shade one side of the yard in the afternoon. A breezeway might catch air that never reached the stove room. After chores, the porch became a place for conversation, music, shelling, repair, and rest. Then there was the spring house. At the Elijah Oliver homestead in Cades Cove, cool spring water passed through a small structure and helped extend the life of eggs, milk, and butter. The Mountain Farm Museum at Oconaluftee preserves another spring house among the buildings used to explain Appalachian farm life. Water emerging from the ground can remain cooler than July air. Stone, shade, and the steady flow help the little building resist quick outdoor temperature changes. Containers near the water had a cooler setting than the kitchen shelf. Cooler is the honest word. A spring house was not a modern refrigerator with a measured setting. Water temperatures varied. Containers could leak. Animals, flooding, and contamination were real concerns. Historical use does not make untreated spring water safe to drink or dairy safe by today's standards. But the building shows the same household thinking as the summer kitchen. Put each job where the land can help. The cook fire belongs away from the sleeping room when the season allows. Milk belongs near the cool spring rather than beside the stove. Quiet work belongs in the shade. Heavy work belongs in cooler hours when the job can be moved. None of these choices creates cold air. Together, they keep the household from adding avoidable heat and help people use the cooler places that already exist. By evening, another change becomes possible. The air outside may finally fall below the temperature held in the walls, floor, and furniture. That is when a house can begin giving the day's heat back. A house stores heat. Roof boards, walls, furniture, and floors warm during the day and release that heat later. This is why a bedroom may still feel close after sunset even when the yard has begun to cool. If the evening air is cooler and the outdoor air is clean, cross ventilation can help carry stored heat out. Openings on opposite sides provide a route. A lower opening can admit cooler air, while a higher opening lets warmer air rise away. Modern guidance sometimes calls the nighttime version night flushing. The word modern belongs there because today's house may include screens, powered fans, insulation, weather sealing, and materials unlike an old cabin. We can borrow the principle without pretending the buildings are the same. Start outside. Shade west-facing glass before the late sun reaches it. An awning, exterior shade, porch roof, or well-placed tree can intercept heat before it enters. Keep curtains or blinds closed when direct sun is hitting the glass. Exterior shade is not possible. Watch the temperature instead of opening every window by habit. If the outside air is cooler, create a path through the house. When outside air becomes hotter, closing shaded rooms can sometimes slow the next heat gain. Air quality matters too. Smoke, pollution, or heavy outdoor humidity can limit when natural ventilation helps. Reduce indoor heat sources. Choose meals that need less oven time. Run hot appliances during cooler hours if practical. Turn off lights and equipment that add unnecessary heat. These are small choices, but small heat sources accumulate in a closed room. Use the coolest, safe place available. That may be a lower shaded floor, a community cooling center, a library, or the home of someone with working air conditioning. Old Appalachians used the coolest part of their own property because that was what they had. We have no duty to refuse safer help merely to prove we can bear heat. Fans need judgment as well. Moving air often feels better because it helps sweat evaporate. Current CDC guidance warns that a fan is not enough protection when indoor temperatures become very high, and it may add heat stress in some conditions. A fan cannot turn dangerously hot air into cool air. Drink water, take breaks. Move hard outdoor work to cooler hours when possible. Check on older people, young children, neighbors who live alone, and anyone whose health or medicine raises heat risk. Heavy sweating, dizziness, weakness, nausea, headache, confusion, or fainting are not signs that somebody should simply toughen up. This is the point where nostalgia has to step aside. Historical households did not possess secret protection from heat illness. They had shade, water, timing, building knowledge, and experience. They also suffered. We should keep the useful judgment and use every safe tool that came later. The useful old principle is that people watched where heat came from. It might be sun through a west window, the cook stove, steam, still air, or heavy work at the hottest hour. Once the source is named, it may be shaded, moved, delayed, or vented when the outside air can carry it away. When those measures are not enough, seek real cooling. That is a better inheritance than a story about being tough. Ask someone about an old family home in July, and they may not begin with the floor plan. They may remember where everybody sat, the porch after supper, the shady side of the house, a chair near two open doors, a spring house down the path, a kitchen that nobody lingered in once the cooking was done. Those memories describe a map of comfort drawn by use. People learned which wall took the afternoon sun, which doorway caught air, and how long the stove held its heat. They knew when the porch became cooler than the bedroom. They noticed when a storm wind turned the leaves and brought relief up the hollow. That knowledge was practical because it was specific. It belonged to one house, one slope, and one July day. A rule that worked in a breezy dog trot did not automatically work in a closed company house. A spring house helped only where there was a spring. A summer kitchen helped only if a family had the building and somebody still did the work inside it. We lose something when we reduce all of that to the sentence, people were tougher then. They watched the house closely because they were limited by what they had. They arranged the day around rooms that could not cool themselves with the turn of a dial. We can be observant too. Walk through your own home on a hot afternoon. Feel which window is giving off heat. Notice whether the porch shades the wall or only the ground. Find out whether opening 2 windows creates a real path or only lets hot air sit in 2 places. Look at the forecast before hard work. Know where you can go if the house becomes unsafe. Comfort was not laziness. Moving a chair into the shade, letting the oven rest, or waiting until evening for a heavy chore made sense when the work could wait. I would like to know the coolest place in your family's old home. Was it a porch, a breezeway, a cellar step, a spring house, or one particular room? What did your people do when July heat settled over the house and would not move? Tell me where everybody gathered. Those small household maps are worth remembering. Take care in the heat. Use the shade. Use the cooler hours. And use modern cooling when you need it. I will leave the lamp low tonight.